Hello, one. Hello, all. Welcome to episode 18 of WILI Interviews. I'm joined by perhaps the biggest person I've interviewed yet, somebody who, a fellow movie YouTuber, and if you've done a search at all for any popular movie in the last year or a half, somebody who's probably one of the top three videos you've seen. Certainly, if it's Marvel, I know that for an absolute fact. Joining me is Sean Chandler of Sean Chandler Talks About. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you for having me. Wow, that's the big. It's weird to think that I could be the biggest at something. That's exciting.
I get that a lot, but for way different reasons. Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. So I had a list of questions I was going to ask you, but then I stumbled across at least one different interview that you've done, and okay. if there are other ones that you feel like plugging, by all means do that, but I'm referring the one that was done on Movies Are Terrible, which is what, if a month old? Is it that long?
About a month ago, yeah.
Yeah, so anything that I don't touch on, by all means check that out, or anything else that you've done or have upcoming. It sounds like you're pretty busy.
Yeah, it's the way the universe worked out. This is the third day in a row that I'm doing some sort of interview or collaboration, and then Saturday I've got another one. And so a lot of the ones I've done up to this point in time are kind of telling my story. Mm-hmm. And then the one coming up this Saturday is going to be talking about specifically like how to review movies, how to get better at reviewing movies. So that's something that's coming up.
Yeah. So the thing that caught my attention and I really wanted to get in your ear about was the fact that you announced pretty publicly, which is, kudos for doing that, first of all, that you are full-time as of this week, right? This week.
This is day number 3.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what made you ultimately decide, you know what, let's go full bore into this. I can do it.
So to fully understand the question, you have to know that for the last 2.5 years, I've been very underemployed. I come from kind of a church background, had some personal struggles, so left that world and just kind of took whatever job I could get. And the job that I got was delivering paint, driving a 16-foot box truck from paint stores to new construction apartments and things like that. And so, just not using my brain, not using my resume, not using any of my skills at all, literally just building my shoulders and my bicep all day long. And so leaving that job was pretty easy. That wasn't exactly the dream job. And so I've always loved movies. I've always loved to create things. And about 4 or 5 years ago, someone asked me, like, if you could write your dream job, what would it be? And basically what I said was I'd want to be an independent content creator, basically. I like to write. I like to make videos. I like to do public speaking, just independently putting my ideas out there in the world. That's what I enjoy doing. And I don't like having a boss, like most people. So independent sounds the best way to do that. And so about a year ago, last February 2018, when Black Panther came out, I put out a couple of videos ranking the MCU villains and the MCU heroes, and they just kind of exploded on a level that was like, wow, like this is really happening. This wasn't like a fluke. This is kind of what I've been building towards, and these videos are just kind of taking off. And it kind of caught my channel on the top of this wave of just growth, viewership, building the community, to where I was going, wait a minute, this is going somewhere. This is actually, this can work. This is going to turn into a career. So a year ago, I started thinking, all right, what's the right time frame? How much money do I need to make? How much money do I need to have saved up? What's my wife afraid of? What am I afraid of? What questions are people going to ask me thinking I'm insane? All right, let me start thinking through all of those and get a good answer. Most importantly, so that my wife doesn't feel like I'm driving us off a cliff. And so what are all your fears? And we kind of wrote them all down. What do you want to be paid for? And we wrote all those down. And so since all the success that we had from YouTube last year was mostly all over and above what we needed, we saved most of it, or we paid off little repairs we needed at the house or everything. And so then it was just a matter of what was the right time to go full time with something that I've been wanting to do for 4 or 5 years, leaving the job that's definitely not the dream job. And it turned out that, in a way, delivering paint turned out to kind of be a dream come true because it didn't use my brain. I got off of work every day and was like, I got to go create something. I have to use my brain on something. And so then I was able to easily channel all my energy into creating videos. Like, how do you have so much energy? Like, after a day of just picking buckets up, I just have to do it. And yeah, so that's kind of the backstory. It's just the sort of thing I've always wanted to do. And starting about a year ago, it seemed like this is realistic. I'm not just going crazy. I'm not getting hopped up on one hit video. This is going somewhere, and started trying to channel all the success towards making this moment happen.
Sure. You kind of alluded to it before, but was there anything in your personal life or your job that kind of dictated the speed of whether or not you advance a little bit faster, or maybe took your time a bit with going ahead with this full-time decision?
The big thing was trying to pick at what point in time in the year made the most sense to launch it, to where I would be most likely setting myself up for success in trying to jump on when things are going to be really hot in regards, most likely for my channel.
Mm-hmm.
And based off last year, that's right before a Marvel movie comes out and right before the summer movie season. So Captain Marvel comes out, well, I guess 1 week from now, or I guess 1 week and 1 day from now, I'm going to be sitting in the theater watching Captain Marvel. That for me is very likely going to be one of my most successful videos. And then that leads into next month. You got Shazam and Hellboy, and then Endgame coming out. So like, this is the window to like working on the stuff behind the scenes. Maybe that's sponsorship, brand deals, but to just really right now go all in, take full advantage of the fact that right now people are going to be wanting to talk about comic book movies. They're going to be going to the movies. They're going to be wanting to talk about the movies that they saw at the theater. So that's kind of what drove the particular timing right here is to right now, where some of that was coming from. And I guess as the other angle of the question of anything kind of my background that might maybe helped, like I said, just not having with the job that I had, it was a lot of drive somewhere, pick a bunch of stuff, a bunch of heavy stuff up. Then you have to rest because it's literally unloading 2,000 pounds of paint out of a truck. Like you're supposed to sit and rest. And so like, I would just sit there and write notes and stuff, like for my stop for 5 minutes and write my video for that night. And then I drive to the next place. And so some of that just was able to kind of prime me to get ahead on things and make things happen. It's a job that I would never have predicted that would be great for me, but turned out to be great for me.
So you were comfortable, like there you didn't rush yourself or take too long. You were kind of in the right wheelhouse. Because I mean, you mentioned the movie schedule, and as far as like work weeks are considered, this is probably like the Sunday night aspect of movie releases. Because once Captain Marvel comes out, we're off to the races until August. So
right,
this
exactly. And that's exactly kind of the thought process in my mind was, okay, so I've got X amount of money saved as kind of the cushion.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't think we're even going to need the cushion right after Captain Marvel comes out, right after Shazam comes out, the month of May, the month of June, the month of July. And so you go, okay, so that's like 5 months right there, plus the cushion. So basically there's enough here to make it through this year without any danger. Like there's no, like my wife could lose her job, the house could burn. There's crazy things that could happen. But outside of the crazy catastrophe type things, it seems like there's throughout the whole rest of the year ramp up time to try and make this sustainable. And that's kind of the pieces that I wanted in place. A year of let's get everything in place, pick the right time. And I was at first thinking it was going to be April 1st. And as I was like, I walked up to people like, yeah, April 1st, I'm going to go full time on YouTube. Like, oh yeah, funny joke. Weird to make April Fool's joke in January. I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't phrase it that way. But then as I started putting the pieces together, looking at what movies were coming out and looking at January went better for me than I was expecting. So I kind of got hit the certain dollar amounts in the bank account that I wanted at the right time. So I decided to just kind of go for it. Then it was like, all right, let's jump on the Captain Marvel wave. So I moved up my time frame about a month from my initial plan. But it all kind of lined up with hitting benchmarks and like, I want to ride that Captain Marvel wave as best I can.
Sure. And I'm assuming if it were last year, you would go even a week earlier because of Black Panther.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. No, it makes sense. I mean, you've talked about it. I'm assuming you've planned for this, but do the pitfalls of YouTube and the constant, I mean, content creators near and far, no matter your subscriber count, have this issue where ad revenue seems to be some sort of hurdle to come over. Have you thought about, planned for, or slightly worried about what could be introduced in the future regarding YouTube?
It's been on my mind. I wouldn't say I'm worried about it, or I'm worried about it in the sense that I thought through it and like, what do I need to get in place to make sure I have the cushion to ride through all that. So the way the universe worked out, last week was my last week at my job. And that same week, some guy posted some blog out there exposing a pedophile ring on YouTube. And inside of it, his call to action at the end of this blog was, all right, to get YouTube to act on this, you need to go after their ad revenue. So go after Disney, go after this person, go after this person. So as far as I know right now, Disney has pulled all of their ad revenue from YouTube right now until YouTube gets this fixed. Well, we got Captain Marvel coming out in a week, and I'm like, Marvel's my channel. So them pulling their ad revenue from YouTube, that's money that I'm not going to make. Like I read that and I go, okay, I guess I'm making less money this month. And that's bad for me. That's not good.
Sure.
It's really bad timing in regards to the exact moment, the exact window where I'm leaving my job. That's when probably the person that I get the most ad revenue from pulls all of it right at a peak window for ad revenue. And also the Endgame trailer might be dropping any day now. Right. In which case that's a trailer that could play in front of my videos.
By the way, so somebody's saying in the chat that it sounds like your webcam audio is coming through and not it sounds like your audio is a little off. That was said in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on with in my settings. It's,
if you do one of these, if you tap on it, we'll be able to hear it.
All right, we should switch up.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All these different softwares.
Oh, so, that sounds way better. Yeah.
There we go. So they drop out right as I'm going over. That's really bad timing. Sure. That's unfortunate, but it's not something that makes me nervous because that's why we had this cushion built into it. Part of the plan was I looked over all my time at YouTube. What's all the crazy stuff that's happened? It's all going to happen again in some form or another. So let's have the cushion to get through that. And the whole point of the first window of time is to build diversified revenue streams and get my own brand deal sponsorships, affiliate links, all kinds of other things. I'm working to do some freelance video editing in March. So there's all kinds of little things that I'm trying to do to kind of fill in all the gaps so that I don't need to count on YouTube being reliable because they're not reliable.
Right. So with you essentially doing this for a living, we all have, miserable parts of our job. You brought it up about the paint job. Is there content that you're going to end up having to create that maybe you're regret or dreading, having to cross that?
I don't have anything at the moment that I'm like, I've got to start creating this or there's nothing on my mind that's in that regard. At least to some level, I enjoy creating all of it, or it's easy enough that I don't mind doing it. Like I'm not specifically like, I just love doing trailer reactions. I love putting a camera on my face and having people watch me as I watch it. Like that doesn't do anything for me. But if that's something that someone else wants to enjoy, it's very easy content for me to create as opposed to everything else that I create that takes hours and hours and hours of editing. That trailer reaction, inherent to the nature of it is I just shoot it in one take real quick. So, and I don't have to write anything. So there's nothing at the moment that I hate doing or that it's like, oh, that's the tedious side to it. There's things that I get nervous about. And I've done two of them in this week. Like anytime I don't like to go into the controversial realm, and controversy normally sparks some sort of
debate.
Gets people talking. And when people start commenting, when people start liking, disliking, either a like or a dislike, YouTube loves that. An interactive viewer, they love it. And so then like just this week, I put out a video talking about the Oscars saying why no one cares about the Oscars. And inherently people are going to come, I care about the Oscars. How dare you? Well, I'm not trying to pick a fight with you. Listen to my arguments. And, I wrote a title that's a little bit inflammatory to get your attention, but listen to what I actually said. I'm not picking on you. I offered you to make your argument. And then today I did one where I made my argument for why they should make a remake of Back to the Future, which I know people get passionate about that one.
Sure.
Fully understand. And I just wish that they would hear my argument and respond to my argument, not just knee jerk. How dare you? It's a classic.
Right.
It is absolutely a classic. We're on the same page. That's why listen to my argument. Don't just knee-jerk respond. But so some of that stuff that I know I have to make, that's one of my plan for the year like, what's the new content I can do? I can do more of these editorials, putting my ideas out there, but inherent to that, they get spicy. And so that's some of the stuff. It gets me anxious at times.
Mm-hmm. You're somebody who very clearly knows how to speak to an audience. You have this presence, this I would call it stage presence. I'm a stand-up comic. Just BSing your way and being able to speak is half the battle. How important do you think, the ability to be a public speaker is versus editing capability, knowledge of what you're talking about? Like what is the balance and what's most important if not all, or what,
It kind of depends on what, I don't think you need to have a bunch of charisma and charm to make it on YouTube. But if you're going to be a talking head, if you're going to do what I'm doing, you do. That's, but like you can do video essays. Like you can write it out and kind of, there's all these videos that like I'll watch them and the person's kind of talking in a monotone about something, but they're saying something interesting and they have an idea that I'm engaged with. And so then you got to be able to edit that, but it really depends on what you're doing. And so I know a ton of people in, this space, obviously, because, it's kind of a small corner of the internet.
Sure.
And, it just, I think people try to be the person that they like rather than trying to be the best version of them. My background coming from church world, I was teaching middle schoolers and high schoolers for 10 years to hold the attention of a 13-year-old boy. You have to be dynamic. You have to be funny. You have to have something whimsical about you. And so that's my background. And so then some of that, eventually I was able to, if you watch my earliest videos, like I'm pretty dull in them. And then eventually I figured out how to like turn back on and talk to a camera as if I was talking to a room full of people. And I think that's kind of when, things for my channel started to get a little bit better. But yeah, if you want to be a talking head, you have to find a way to have a stage presence or camera presence. But there are other things that you can do on YouTube that do not require you to be able to speak articulately. If you're not articulate, if you're not charming, this probably is like, it can be a hobby, but you're probably not going to get a ton of success if you can't pull people in with your persona.
Cody dropped $2 in the chat. Thank you, Cody. He says, "You know what time it is?" and starts the Shaft music. Well, you know what? I'm going to call you on it a little bit. You kind of bailed on it because you have different elements that you do well. Like your thumbnails are quite aesthetically pleasing. So there's more to it than just your voice. You play the YouTube game very well. I don't know if you know what that means by my terminology, but part of it, people have to click on the thumbnail. They have to click on the link to even get to you. So how important do you think it is to have that drawing picture, whether it be a title or both? Or
you want to go down the path of, if you want to be successful and make it on YouTube, how important is it?
Sure.
I think that's where so many people, they just want to review a movie. They just want to talk about a book. They just want to like hit record on the camera and talk about it. And they're not stopping to think about the experience of the viewer themselves. And they're not thinking, how does someone click on my video in the first place? And so then they don't get the views that they want, or when they get the views, their watch time is low. People kind of click away real quick because they're not designing it to get new people to show up, and then when new people show up, to get them to stay. And so very early on, I decided, I think I want to try and make this work. And so I started doing extensive YouTube training very early on. And I have a background in, I did graphic design when I was doing church world stuff. And so I've done a lot of graphic design. I've designed logos for people. I'm not a graphic designer, but if I put enough time into something, I can get to something good. So like my thumbnails, there's the prototype version of them when I first started aren't very good, but I was like, I think there's an idea here that if I stick with this long enough, it'll get good. And then it got good. And then people started copying my thumbnails, which is kind of funny to me. Like I see strangers put out a ranking video. It's like, that's my thumbnail. Like, hey, I see it all the time. But yeah, you have to stop and think, if someone sees your thumbnail, does it represent this video well? Would they want to click on this? Does it look professional? Because if you just see a screenshot from the video and it's you in front of a white wall or, mother of pearl wall or something, dimly lit, shadows on your face, they go, okay, that's just someone shooting with their webcam. Let me see what they're not going to click on it in the first place.
Over the side.
Right. Or if they see something and they go, that's a real slick looking thumbnail, they assume there's a professionalism in the content. And then if you just have a great thumbnail and they click on it, oh, it's dimly lit, I can't hear the microphone, or if it's like the beginning of this one where I did my settings wrong, I wasn't paying enough attention, selected my webcam mic instead of this. Like, I was literally, before we started, I was adjusting this, like, all right, let's get this in the right spot. And then I selected the wrong mic in the settings. Like, if you do that when you're shooting all of your videos and it sounds bad, but your thumbnail looks good, they open it up, they click on it, they start watching it, and they go, this isn't very good, and they click away. And so if you want to make it, you just have to stop and think through what will get someone to click and what will get someone to stay. And YouTube, being that it's owned by Google and has all those Google analytics, they give you so much information to study your stuff. It'll make you depressed the first time you do it. Like, it'll just breaks your heart. You're like, I thought I was doing so good. I'm not. But you study it and you can make so many improvements just by playing the game or whatever you want to call it. And but yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you really want to make it, you gotta have a lot of things firing.
Are there any things that are, cliche in the YouTube game playing, clickbait, whatever you want to call it, that perhaps frustrate you, that that like, see, I'll say it for all of us, the ending explain videos that, for stuff that just doesn't need an ending explain. Sometimes it's just like, well, you just 500,000 views on that, huh? Interesting. Okay. I didn't realize I needed an ending explain for Forrest Gump, but okay. Is anything, I'm not, just as an example, is there anything that is in the YouTube stratosphere that frustrates you?
I think any one of the ones where it kind of theories based off of nothing. That's where, like, I get some of it. Like,
Sure.
when Phantom Menace was coming out, I was at that right age to where I was following this before YouTube, but every theory about Phantom Menace that there was, I was tracking with all of it, every rumor mill thing. But then, I see some of it, and it's I just don't operate on that level, because I just see so many of these things that don't turn out to be true. Like, there's having like your best of theories I get, but when they're just digging so deep into it, every little nook and cranny, like, we're speculating a bit too much. I think like reacting to trailers I get, or like, because it's a format that's easily consumable to talk about something. But then when it's like reacting to everything out there, I just don't get it. And sometimes people request, hey, can you react to the honest trailers and things like this? And I don't get it. I don't know why you would want to watch me watch an honest trailer, because it's not, I want to do a trailer reaction so you can know my thoughts as I'm watching it and then talk about it afterwards.
Sure.
Because it's all about my ideas. I don't have any ideas about an honest trailer. Like, as I'm watching, like, Dan Murrell wrote a good joke there. Good on him. Like, epic voice guy. He's got a great voice. I mean, and so I just don't get it. It's something just so visceral, primal of just watching someone like smile and grin. And I don't do that. Like, the joke on my reactions is that, like, I either sit there still, or I'm like tilting my head, or like I'm doing this. And so what I started doing is I started putting like word bubbles at the bottom to say what I was thinking. Because I was like, I don't want to start acting. I'm not looking to become an actor watching trailers, but I can tell you what I'm thinking as things happen.
Sure.
And I really enjoyed that, because it's authentic.
Which is a neat touch,
to me.
by the way.
Oh, thank you. Like, whenever I had that thought of like, somebody even mentioned, I think one of my friends actually mentioned, like, you should put like a thought bubble on there. I was like, that's a good idea. So I didn't do it for 2 years. And so then finally I started doing it. I was like, why didn't I start doing this 2 years ago? Because this is what I wanted. I don't want to be like I don't want to put on a show for people, but I wanted to have information that's interesting and engaging. So, but yeah, YouTube's a weird space. There's a lot of things out there that I don't necessarily like to think about it from the perspective of criticizing a genre of types of things that someone might like. Probably the better way for me to think about it is, I can see people doing things that I don't like. That's probably the better. And I wouldn't want to name anyone. I'm not definitely
sure,
that, but there's more things where it's like that person's just taking advantage that like this is empty calories of YouTube. Like, what are you doing? And so, things like that can bug me a little bit when I see someone that just YouTube junk food, especially when they're getting traction. When I watch someone else doing content that has, meat to it that's going nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll piggyback that with a bit of a question that I'm rather cynical. I'll take the cynical end of a thing you talked about in the Movies Are Terrible interview. Okay. You talked about positive reinforcement and stuff from watching others. Has there ever been a moment, again, not naming names, not naming videos, not naming genres, anything like that, where you had this cynical look like, well, if that person can do it, I know that I can do it. Like, again, you don't have to name names. Did you ever have that thought at any point, like, going way back to when you were first thinking about it? Or
I mean, I think in the non-cynical sense, I had that thought early on because I had done enough video work and done enough public speaking, and that I knew that if I did it long enough, I could have a stage presence. And I did like video announcements and things like that. And so I had enough of a background to think, as I was watching all the people that everybody knew, the Stuckman, Johns, Campia, like I thought, I think I could do that in the positive sense. And then I started trying to do it. I was like, okay, this is like, it's not a one-to-one comparison. You have to figure this out. And, but there's certainly been things that I've watched, been very frustrated to see when people were ahead of me. And it was like, what? Sure. All they're doing is they're just putting out a thing that they know will get clicks. And they're like, I don't know if they're passionate about it. It doesn't seem like they are. It just seems like they're chasing that thing. And that stuff that, frustrating is the feeling.
So kind of go back to what I asked you before. I mean, you clearly, you have all the right equipment. You know what to do as far as thumbnails are concerned, and you have the public speaking background. How important is it to where knowledge / passion versus a technicality of how to present yourself to be entertaining? What's the balance, do you think? How much of it is entertaining versus a passion for the thing you're talking about?
Well, it's kind of depends on what your end goal is. If your goal is to just grow a subscriber base in some sort of short-term fashion, the key thing is, put out title like, you won't believe what I discovered in the Endgame trailer. I mean, just put all the ridiculous things, and it's like, look, someone was probably edited out of this shot, and you make that into a 5-minute video, and you can just do that without having any meat to it. And I know people that do that and they're legitimately passionate about it. So I don't want to just, like I said, I don't want to criticize genres because there's honest, good people that do things like that. And then there's people that you see doing it and it's like, what? Like you don't know anything about this subject. You just had us hit video in this direction, and now you just crank out tons of videos in this direction. If all you care about is success, then it's just the game is the most important thing. If you want a satisfying YouTube career or whatever you want to call it, you need to know what you're doing. Some people, by their nature, just enjoy the visceral nature of a reaction video. And so my buddy Andy, who I've done some videos with, he actually reads comics, and so it has a great knowledge, but just as his personality, he's very excitable. So when we did a Captain Marvel reaction video, he was like bouncing up and down in his chair and like kept saying things out loud. And people are like, why is he acting like he's just putting on a show? It's like, no. Like, we did a false start, and we did this stuff when no one was watching, when the cameras aren't on. He is like that. And so if that's something that you're like that and you're satisfied being able to have your energy poured out for other people, then that's good enough. And not everyone needs to be an expert and have deep content inside of everything. And my friend Andy knows comics better than me. That's why I have him. So I'm not saying that he doesn't have deep content, but like some people, that's their whole channels are trailer reactions because they just enjoy entertaining people or things like that. For me, I view my channel as.
Sean, hold that thought. I view that channel. Is that just me, Dino? Or am I the one who's broken? Dino? Oh, okay. Sean, you're back. So for me, last thing I heard was for me something, and then you froze.
So for me, I don't know.
All right, you know what? So
like for me, my channel is about my ideas. Like I want to engage people, so I try to be funny, but I don't want to just be an entertainer. That's like, I'm not, this isn't entertainment is part of what I do to make it something that people enjoy watching. At the core of it, I want to have something to say. So people frequently like, hey, can you put a video out about, this was like the last week, can you put a video out about Brie Larson and Captain Marvel and all the controversy surrounding it? And it's like, I don't have anything to add to it. If I put that video out, I know people will watch it. It'll get over 10,000 views. Maybe it'll take off a little bit more. But I don't have much to say other than everyone needs to stop being ridiculous. She probably should be wiser with her words, and people need to stop overreacting. You're doing the same thing you're accusing her of doing. So that's all I have to say. I don't want to make a 5-minute video saying that, and I don't necessarily want to jump into that pool, but I know I would get views if I did that. And so, like, just that's, I don't know where I was going with that one, but something.
Oh, now you're frozen again. Okay, now you're good. So how much of your YouTube persona would you say is you, Sean? Like me, CP. CP are my initials. I'm a bit of a characterized version of me, Charles. How much would you say that you? And if it's not at all, but by all means say so. But how much of your YouTube persona is, Sean with a couple of knobs turned up or down?
It's a little bit of a.
Oh, hold that thought. Oh no.
People that
wait. Hold that thought. It's a little bit of a I'm assuming you're saying tricky.
Tricky, yes. Am I back?
Start over. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do we know which one of us it is that's the problem, or?
They're saying it's you.
Oh man. I don't know what's causing it, but so anyway, so it's tricky. I'm a pretty strong introvert.
Yeah.
And
welcome to YouTube, by the way.
Yes, yeah. And so when I was back in church world, everyone saw me on stage, and my stage persona is very much my YouTube persona. Probably funnier because I could tell stories, and there was youth ministry, so more shenanigans, doing ridiculous stuff. So people would see me very dynamic, loud, waving my hands, talking really fast, telling funny stories. And then I get off the stage, and they walk up to me, and I'm pretty awkward. I don't know how to respond to things. I have to stop. I have to slowly think about what people are saying. But it's not like I created a character. It's not like I wrote like, all right, what do I need to be engaging? It's what I naturally turn into when speaking to an audience. It's like a switch in my brain. I did an interview like 6 months ago or something, and these guys were interviewing me, and I was talking pretty kind of slow in a normal conversational voice. And then they said something, and it was like the switch went off, and I started talking higher and faster, and I like mid-sentence I was like, see, this is what happens to me when I go on stage. Like the switch can just go off, and then I'm a different person. And it's the same thing that happens as soon as I click record. So some people tell me all the time in my videos, like, you need to talk slower, stop. Like, why are you screaming all the time? Why are you doing like, I have to actively calm myself down as soon as I hit record. It's not that I hit record. It's like, or let me amp myself up. Like, I got to talk fast. Like, no. I just do all of this. Like, I haven't stopped to think about a single hand gesture I've made in this entire video. And the whole time I'm waving my hands around, like I just do that. And so it's tough to say, like, I think it fully represents a part of who I am. But it
represents a part of who I am. I think it's his connection. Yeah, you froze again. The last thing you said was it represents a part of who I am.
Because I'm not losing you guys at all, so that's what makes it
really.
Like I have not lost a second of use. That's where it's like I just wait until you start looking down like this and breathing, and that's when I know that stop talking. So it represents a part of who I am, and it is kind of this amplified up version of me. But if you meet me in person, don't expect me to talk. And I'm not the guy that's going to jump on the table and like, hey, everybody. Like, I'm not going to do that unless I'm in a position to where suddenly I feel comfortable doing that. And suddenly I'm fine jumping up on a stage and doing whatever. But like, I've met a few people in person from YouTube. And the first thing that every one of them told me was like, oh, at first I didn't think you liked me. Like, I thought you really didn't like me because you were acting so like calm. I was like, oh, no. And then I talked long enough. And then it was like, oh, he's just not like the guy he is on camera. Like, yeah, that's right. It makes me scared now because I last month I was recognized out in public. I was just at the movies and some guy in the parking lot was like, hey, and called me over and was like, hey, man. And so you could talk with him a little bit. And so I don't want to be the guy that's rude to people and like, hey, are you Sean Chandler from YouTube? I was like, yeah, I'm Sean Chandler from YouTube. I'm too big to waste my time. Like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I wanted to, like, someone to meet me for it to be like the, great day for them. And so then I have to like stop, like prepare myself for when it happens. Like, all right, how do I not be awkward introvert when I'm like when someone runs into me somewhere?
Mm-hmm. So this is a bit of a two-parter. I'll go with the positive end first. In your experience, what is the most passionate film base? I mean, if you were to ask me to put a finger on your channel, I would say pop culture movies go to Sean Chandler. So I mean, Marvel, DC, horror, you name it, there's some passionate fan bases out there. But who would you say, judging from comments or requests or what have you, what is the most passionate fan base?
Yeah, passion. It seems Marvel fans of the big ones out there seem to be probably the most respectful, I think. Because they're not as divisive of films. They're like, well, these are all pretty well made films. And so there's disagreement inside of it, but a little bit more reasonable disagreement. There seems to be a lot of crazy in the DCEU fan base. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know where that's coming from, but just a little bit like paranoid, like fears.
I think it's perceived success versus perceived failure that DC, they're just waiting for that hit to come out.
And I think they think because so many people do just crap on the DCEU, right. They're looking for other people doing that. I'm not that at all. Like, right. Like I have at least can enjoy all the DCEU movies. I haven't crapped on any of them. I would give a thumbs up to Batman v Superman. I really like Man of Steel. And so I'm not that person at all that's been doing that. I put out a comic book, my 10 best superhero movies of all time. In the top 5 was, I think, 2 Christopher Nolan Batman movies and Superman the movie. So 3 of the top 5 are DC movies, but they're not DCEU. And so someone in the comments commented like, this just is more proof that you're just a Marvel fanboy. I was like, wow. Wow. No. And there's several other things like this. Like, you just have crapping on the DCU all the time. I was like, crapping all the time? What are you talking about? Well, because you're not excited about the Joker movie. Well, I haven't seen a trailer for it yet. I can't be excited about it. I think it's weird they're doing a Joker movie without Batman. I've said that repeatedly. I think it's weird that they're doing all these weird projects, but I'm not crapping on it. I'm confused by them.
Sure.
And so then I think they're the one that has the most crazy. And then the fan base that's just impossible to please is Star Wars. They're just impossible. No matter what you do, you're screwed. Like, it's just and I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan. Right, I shoot with a webcam sitting on my laptop. My laptop is on top of a stack of Star Wars books. Almost every video I've ever shot is built on the foundation of Star Wars. That's how foundational it is. There's all kinds of Star Wars pops all around me. Star Wars book right here. I love Star Wars. But you would think that I hate Star Wars if you like, and I watch the prequels every year. Every year I watch the prequels. There's none of these movies that I'm just hating on. I have criticisms of some of them. I find I have a very middle of the road opinion on the divisive ones. But man, people you're just a prequel hater. Like, because I have Revenge of the Sith on the lower half of my list. I gave you reasons. I didn't just hate on it. I did not. Like, I think that these are plot points, and I specify, you're just a hater. Like, no, I'm not. Or like, whatever you do with the Star Wars ranking, someone will be furious with you and accuse you of something. So, I don't know about most passionate. They're passionate in very different ways, but the crazy DCEU, Star Wars, most impossible to please.
Yeah, so I think you kind of answered it, but I was about to ask you who's the most irrational fan base, and I'm assuming you're going to go ahead and say Star Wars again. I'll give you time to. So to lead in while you take a drink, I'm right there with you. I welcomed Force Awakens. I loved it. Everybody who complained about it seemed to be that it was too samey. It was too familiar. And then when Last Jedi came out, the main complaint was, well, it's too new. Yeah. And it's just like, well, wait a minute. you can't hate both of them. One of them you got to be on board for.
When you can't when you're making the argument that way.
Right.
And so like for me, I had a lot of issues with Last Jedi. But like I'm not hating on it. I'm like, you ruined my childhood. Star Wars has been burned to the ground. Like, no. If you want to list off the things you hate about it, I'll probably be like, I think you're right on 8 out of 10 of those. Mm-hmm. I think you're right with your criticisms. That's not the same thing as you ruined my childhood or whatever. Like, you killed the universe. Like, that's a bit of an exaggeration there.
Right. So do you have a genuine education in film?
No, nothing formal. I don't really have formal education in anything that I do. Even in so I was a preacher for 10 years. I never took a preaching class. With that, I was basically a counselor for teenagers for 10 years. I never took a counseling class. I was an event planner for 10 years. Essentially, that's what church world is. It's planning a Sunday event, and then it's planning like youth retreats and parties and stuff. I've never taken an event planning course. I've never taken a video editing course. I've never taken I've taken basic speech class 101 at community college, but I'm a learner by nature, and so then I've read a lot of books on screenwriting and on story, and Joseph Campbell, Hero with a Thousand Faces. I've got a whole bunch of these Leonard Maltin movie guides that I've been reading for over 20 years. When I first discovered them, reading Roger Ebert's books back in the day. There's a podcast called Script Notes it's a Script Note podcast. They've got like 300 episodes now, and they're all an hour long. And I listened to the first like 200 episodes of this show. So 200 hours, and they're two working screenwriters. One's Craig Mazin, who wrote like Identity Theft, Hangover 2 and 3, so like lowbrow comedy type movies. Sure. And the other one is John August, who's written like Big Fish and several movies for Tim Burton. So two very different guys talking about the business of screenwriting, talking about how do you write a good script, what's in their character arcs. So 200 hours of them talking about screenwriting, plus reading a whole bunch of books. That's where a lot of it kind of comes from. And some of that's I've tried to write screenplays before, so you get kind of the language for it. But I think that's the key thing of if you get the language of story and you get the language of filmmaking, suddenly your reviews are a lot more articulate and sound like you know what you're talking about. When it's like, no, all I know is the vocabulary. That's right. As soon as you know that, you suddenly seem smarter than you are.
Right. So I guess where did your love of film start then? Like, can you trace back a moment where you're like, you know what, this is a lot more important to me than thing here? Yeah.
It probably more just kind of nerd culture type stuff of, I don't really know where it came from specifically. We watched some movies growing up. My mom's always been like someone that likes to go to the movie theater still to this day. Like she'll see movies that I don't even see sometimes because she's, old lady with free time. So she goes with her buddies to the movies. And, so, we were a family that went to the movies, but I think my sister got into like Star Trek a little bit more on the like, hey, there's Star Trek convention things. So we started going to Star Trek conventions a little bit, and then started going to the comic book store every Saturday, riding our bikes up there and doing costumes, going to Star Trek conventions. And so it was a lot of that sort of stuff of just kind of being in the nerd culture, always being into superheroes and things like that. Even like when Batman 89 came out, I collected all the cards. So I still have it right here with me. And so just some of that stuff that just kind of happened. There wasn't anything that was like there wasn't one specific moment. It just always was there and just kind of kept growing until, and then whenever my friend introduced me to the Leonard Maltin movie guide, I was like, wait, a book with a list of all the movies? Wow. And so got one of these and would mark all the movies that I'd seen inside of it.
Mhm.
And then I started like my own Jackie Chan webpage in the late 90s. So there wasn't any one thing. I just always enjoyed movies, and I'm just kind of a all-in kind of person. That's probably, why I was successful on YouTube, because it's just like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And so then went all in movie fandom, and here we are.
So are there any films or genres that you just can't get yourself to sit through, or you just, don't?
That's a tough one. In general, I just like movies. So most things I can kind of find some way to enjoy. As a reviewer, it can get tough doing kids movies at times, because I'm just not the target audience. Certain ones
you have kids, don't you?
I do, but that's so I have 3 kids, 2 that can watch movies and 1 that's 5 months old and is useless. It's totally useless. Drain on the resources and my time. But the other 2, they can watch movies. But you think, like, they sit down and watch the Barbie TV show and they're having a great time with it. I'm just sitting there like, what is this that you're watching? And so, when trying to watch a movie that's aiming towards kids, like Hotel Transylvania 3, they were having fun with it, but it's not, I'm not the target audience for Hotel Transylvania 3. And so sometimes ones like that can be tougher for me to review if I'm just totally not the target audience. And the other one that, I mentioned this in the interview that you've referenced a few times, but like highbrow prestige films, those just don't necessarily speak my language, and I can appreciate them, but I don't even necessarily know how to talk about them. Sometimes I feel out of my depth talking about Best Picture nominees and things like that. So I didn't even see 3 of the Best Picture nominees this year, and just kind of some of it was that they weren't playing at the right place at the right time, and if they'd been playing at my local theater, I probably would have caught up on them before the Oscars. But like, I didn't see Roma, and it's on Netflix, so I could have watched. Sure. I have no imaginable excuse for why I didn't watch the movie Roma, other than it's like, I'm only watching this because it was nominated for Best Picture. Nothing that I've seen about this makes me go, Roma, I want to watch that. People keep telling me it's a beautiful film. Obviously, it was nominated for Best Picture, but it's just not something that by nature is like, I think that'll hit me right here. It's I like my superhero movies and my people with laser sword movies and movies where people die a lot. So I don't know if there's that.
There should be a genre. People die a lot. So which are the other 2 that you haven't seen?
Green Book and Vice.
So what would be your favorite of the 5 you did see?
I would have been going for A Star Is Born.
Okay.
That one for me just had the most emotional resonance. It kind of hit the most notes, both because it's about music and because just it touches on so much of the human experience. And then, I've struggled with alcohol in the past, and so that a movie about person dealing with addiction that can hit a lot of it hits very easily strikes a chord with me.
That's a dynamite segue, by the way. I was going to ask you about movies that represent something in your life, and here you go, feeding it up to me. So to kind of lead you into the question, I used to spend quite a bit of time in underground poker clubs, and a movie that I felt captured that world incredibly well was Rounders. Not many people have seen it, but if you want to know what underground poker rooms are like, that movie totally gets it. With that said, is there a movie out there that has captured something about your private life and pulled it off perfectly or really well?
Yeah, and this was one from 2017.
Okay. Very
divisive film. I didn't see too many people that had. It was pretty good. It was either like, oh, that was great at what it did, or it was awful. It's a movie called The Glass Castle.
Okay.
Stars Brie Larson and Woody Harrelson. And basically, it's about her. The movie's told at kind of different time frames. It's her as an adult, about 30 years old, and then it's going back through her childhood with her dad, who serious substance abuse issues. And so it's telling the story of her like having these nostalgic memories about her childhood as her dad's doing things that by any reasonable standard you would call child abuse. And so a lot of people watched it and they're like, this movie is sick. They're trying to show Woody Harrelson's character as this hero, as this dreamer, like, hey, everybody just like, you need to be free like him. He's got faults, but because he's a dreamer. And so they're just like, this is disgusting that you would romanticize a child abuser like this.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up in a pretty broken home with a dad, alcoholic father.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things from my childhood that you process in a very strange way in that environment. Because it's my childhood, I'm nostalgic for this childhood and have all these kind of fond memories of these things. But there's some stuff that went down with my dad that would be, as I've thought about it, was like, oh, that was child abuse. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that until like I was like telling the story to someone when I was like 25.
Mm-hmm.
And like as a funny story about my dad hitting me with a 2x4. And I had this realization, that's not a funny story at all. Like that's a horrible story. Like I can't, like I've been telling this as a joke for 15 years. Wow. And it just kind of clicked in my head. And it's not as bad of a story as it sounds when I phrase it like that, but that's essentially, he decided he wanted to give us spankings with a 2x4 so we'd stop misbehaving.
Right.
And that's what that sort of strange nostalgia for something where you have these, it's my childhood and your fondness towards it and you love your family, but you don't know how to process it out in a way that other people necessarily understand. And so you make a movie that represents that properly on the screen, which is a nostalgic childhood story about a child abuser who's an addict who leads his family to homelessness. So like I said, some people see that and they go, that was my childhood. I totally get this. And a bunch of people watch it and they go, what is wrong? What were they thinking making this movie? Like,
right.
And that's what I went to go see with a friend and we walk out and he goes, oh man, that was like the most tone deaf film I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And then I got into a bunch of fights with people on Twitter over it. They're like, I hated this movie. It's the worst movie of the year. And then I had it in my top 10 best of the year. It was like that level of gap.
So what's your take on Requiem for a Dream if you've seen it?
It's been too long. I've seen it several times, but it's been over 10 years. So, at the time I enjoyed it, but when I watched it, I was also kind of fresh out of high school and like, oh, artsy films, indie films. It's different. It's not a blockbuster, but I haven't watched it recently enough to be able to process it in that manner.
Right. I mean, we're both of addiction backgrounds. I would say that film covers addiction pretty well, and the pitfalls and the difficulties.
And my struggles with addiction came after I would have seen the film.
Sure.
So even the context under which I would have seen it wouldn't have picked up on it from a personal, like my experience type of level. But and I was a pretty dumb kid whenever I watched it too. Basically, I was pretty stupid until about last week. As of now, I'm very smart. But until last week, I was pretty dumb. And so even while watching it, I wasn't even putting it together like, oh, yeah, I grew up with an addict dad. That like I didn't even think about it on those levels.
Mm-hmm. Is there a movie that maybe influenced you to take on a hobby?
Movie that influenced me to take on a hobby in the most in the goofy way. Not a movie, but in general, I've always been into big action movies. And so I've always had a little bit of, I got to be big, strong guys. And so, I've been into weightlifting and things like that for over 10 years now. And, some of it's just like, I was, until I got engaged, I was 6'1", 135 pounds. And I hated it. Like, it's just so unpleasant because people would see me like, oh, like I remember being at college orientation. And they're doing, the pyramid, just like, let's build a human pyramid. So stacking people on top of it was like, all right, I can be on bottom. I'm nice, tall. And they're like, a girl says to me, whoa, you look very breakable. Not cool. And I hated that kind of thing. And so in that sense, kind of all the Arnold Stallone movies just inspired me like being a macho man to try and hit the gym and things like that. But
I thought you were going to say something like Over the Top, and then I thought you were going to take us to Bring It On, but you brought it back to Arnold. I was trying to decipher where we were going on that journey. So I'll point this to the chat. If you have a question for Sean, by all means, drop it in the chat, and then I'll finish it up with my channel question. A lot of people saying hi. You're Aiden. Hello. A lot of people Anthony, so sick of superheroes. Sean, why do you hate Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
Who asked the question?
Jose Sarango?
Interesting. Okay. I don't hate Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That's one of those ones of like I don't even fully understand why people circulates around me. I was wondering if it was someone who's joking, because I've had that conversation with people before where they're like, why do you hate this? I was like, I don't hate Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I've never said I hate Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. What I have said is that it was one of my most disappointing movies the year it came out, because it was my most anticipated movie of the year, because I loved the first one. It's one of my favorite MCU films. And then I just found Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 distasteful. And there's a whole bunch of reasons. And anyone that's heard me say things where they would go, this guy hates Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, has also repeatedly heard me explain, walk through my reasons about like the plot involves infanticide, patricide, torture of a child while people are laughing, someone watching all their friends killed in space while people are laughing. Like some of this, like this is pretty like side by side with some of the Looney Tunes humor. It's tonally very uneven. And I can watch some really dark stuff, but when it's in the MCU, it just feels off. And when you're not really dealing with the fact of like, oh, we just introduced the fact that Star-Lord has thousands of siblings, that his dad died. And then even kind of some of the stuff of, you know, my dad died from drinking alcohol when I was 20. So I have all sorts of child daddy issues and stuff. So you introduce a plot line about Star-Lord finding the lost dad. Well, anyone that has a troubled history with daddy issues, the fantasy is always like, oh, what if I actually could get to know my dad a little bit more? What if they were a little bit healthier type person? Well, you introduce a plot line where the dream comes true. Star-Lord gets to meet his dad. And so then they even play catch with each other, only to find out his dad killed thousands of his siblings and his mother. Like that's a very distasteful, unpleasant direction to take a daddy issue plot line for me. And some people, that's what.
And in one movie too. If they did it over the course of multiple movies, it'd be one thing. But yeah,
right. And even the way the story plays out, it's like Kurt Russell's in it. Oh, that's cool. And then he goes and takes a nap. And then he shows up, delivers some exposition. And then he goes and takes a nap. And then he shows up and he delivers some exposition and they play catch. And then he takes a nap. And then he shows up and reveals that he's a homicidal maniac. Like ego maniac. I mean, like, I just, there's things about it that I really like, but I don't hate it. They kind of picked a direction to go with it that's any other direction I would have liked more than where they went with it. But it's still really funny.
Sure. Not hate, right?
And I gave it a positive review. Like I gave it a thumbs up. Technically, in my review, it was a thumbs up. But I'm a very big fan of the MCU. So just because I have it as one of my lowest on my MCU ranking doesn't mean I hate it. It's a category of movies that I really like.
Sure. Have you seen the Star Wars Theories Vader fan film?
I haven't yet. People have asked me about that a lot. I just haven't stopped to watch it yet. I guess now I don't have any more excuses because I just sit at home all day. So
somebody noticed your Dunder Mifflin shirt. Kudos on that. Best office character.
Michael Scott. I think just
wow. Straightforward.
Yeah, I think he's hilarious, and then they found ways to give him these little moments of victory and little moments where he shows that he actually cares, as selfish as he can be, as clueless as he can be. In the episode Business School, where Pam has an art show and nobody shows up, Michael has to show up because he cares about her that much, sees her little doodling of the office, and he's like, wow, I'm so proud of you. And it's such an authentic moment. And so I think he's the one that they kind of gave the most heart and nuance to the way he's wired. And then it's just so funny.
Hector says, what's up? I love your videos.
Thank you, Hector. I appreciate it.
Oh, not going to comment on that name, but they say Sean Chandler. Hell yeah. Again, Hector says, Sean, your passion is what draws me into your videos, and I hope you keep up the great work.
That's the plan. And because I don't have to carry paint anymore, I should be even more energized in my videos.
Mm-hmm. Sean, do you wait for Triple Threat to come out? Question mark. I don't know what that means.
Triple Threat is a movie coming out next month that has Tony Jaa, the guy Dino from The Raid, Michael Jai White, Scott Adkins. It's this triple threat, but it's more than three. It's like 4 or 5 of
martial arts guys,
martial arts guys from the last 15 years. So now, like normally, I probably wouldn't review that on my channel in previous normal because of just time constraints. But I absolutely plan on reviewing that one when it comes out. I think they're doing a 1-day theatrical wide release of it too. So I plan on hoping to catch it in the theater. So I'm really excited about that. I really like Tony Jaa, obviously the guy from The Raid. Put all these guys together in one movie. That sounds like a movie with no plot that I'm going to love.
A question from producer Dino. Dino, you could have just asked this aloud, but he says, what are your thoughts on Halloween 2018?
I thought it was good with some just bizarre missteps, like just weird missteps in it. What they did with New Loomis, I almost was like, I think you might have just killed your movie. It didn't quite kill it, but they really like, if you keep going down this path, you're gonna destroy this movie with okay, we're okay. Not a good direction to go with it in general, but
a bizarre 30 seconds there. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, like what? This is like the craziest, worst 30 seconds you could have possibly put in this movie of making me anxious that you're killing your movie. And then the humor, the timing of the humor, when they placed the humor in the movie, I thought was really poor because they would, in particular, the sequence in the middle of it with the babysitter, and it's like it's a killer sequence, and then it like cuts to like a kid cracking jokes.
Yeah, riffing,
Like this is like if riffing between the scenes, cops riffing right before Michael shows up. Cool. Riffing when he's in the room, like swinging at people. No, like that's when it's supposed to be tension. You don't do the thing that cuts the tension. You do the thing where he cuts the people.
Is there a movie?
I liked it. It just like it was those missteps but I'm saying the negatives, but I was very positive on besides those things.
Very diplomatic answer, Sean. Thank you. What's a movie that you cannot enjoy or bear to watch that most people seem to enjoy / love? Try being diplomatic with that answer.
Yeah. You know, I'll kind of list off some of the ones that, like the original Blade Runner. I've never been an original Blade Runner fan, and I've tried multiple times. And people have tried this cut of the movie, and it's like, all right, I will. But the voiceover is not the thing that pulled me out of the movie. So I try like of the think 3 or 4 times I've watched it, I've never clicked with that one. Like I don't hate it, but I just didn't mesh with me. I'm not a big Stanley Kubrick guy. Once again, I'm not going to hate on it. I'm not going to tell like The Shining sucks. It's not that, but all of his artsy flares and the things that he does that I can respect what he's doing. That's not the thing that makes me go, oh, I want to watch this all the time. Like I don't ever get in the mood like, man, I can't wait to put 2001 on. That's not a thing that happens. But I can respect the movie. I can watch and be like, I get why someone else would appreciate this, but I'm just not the person to do that. And I don't want to pretend to be either.
Is there a movie that made you want to learn more about filmmaking techniques?
Movies that have a really tight, smart script normally are the ones that when I watch a movie and I think, wow, that was a smart script. They put a lot of thought into it. Like watching some of the Christopher Nolan style Inception. Like I would love to see him just sit down like, where did you come up with this? What was the starting point? And how did you develop through your ideas for this and tie it all back together so that the hints for all the different interpretations of the end are sprinkled throughout the movie? Ones like that are I get excited thinking about how does someone write that?
Yeah. That movie tenfold too. The fact that he managed to pitch that film and get a budget. I mean, granted, it's based on the success of Dark Knight, but if you were to pitch that idea to me, I'd be like, what?
Right.
And he managed to get hundreds of millions on that idea, that's incredible.
Right.
That movie. Right. Are you planning on doing any live stream movie watches soon?
Probably. Yeah. So I was going to do them a little bit more frequently. And then I did kind of the first one, and I take I very much factor in feedback. And so then I pretty quickly realized, okay, I picked the first Iron Man and not enough people own it. And so then that seemed to be kind of a holdup on who could watch it. Mm-hmm. And so then what I'm looking to do is pick some of the ones that are on Netflix. But the ones that are on Netflix are the ones that are from the last 3 years. So I'm currently watching through all the MCU films, and I haven't gotten to those ones yet. So that's somewhat, some people are wondering if they're specifically asking why I did one, I haven't done another one. Mm-hmm. That's the background on somewhat where this is coming from. But come to think of it, I even had plans to maybe even do one this Saturday. So maybe I'll put out a community post tomorrow saying one will be Saturday. But now that I'm full time, I have no excuses. I just the way the week worked, I've done, as I mentioned, like 4 of these interviews already this week of different sorts. So busy.
What's your favorite MCU moment or scene?
Not great at picking single favorites, so I'm trying to think through some of my favorite, those things that hit me the most. Mm-hmm. The last moment in the first Iron Man when they're doing the press conference and it's Tony Stark and he just goes, "I am Iron Man." I think that's a great moment. Mm-hmm. The rescue sequence in Captain America First Avenger, and he rescues the guys and comes back, and Tommy Lee Jones is, "What's going on here?" And it's Captain America saved everybody. That's a pretty great moment. And the score from Alan Silvestri is really great. Whenever a big one for me, that's not necessarily a favorite moment, but favorite, like in a theater watching a movie being like, oh, is this where this is going? Watching Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time, and Drax the Destroyer shows up, and Star-Lord goes like, "And then we're gonna," and Drax goes, "Why would we put our fingers on our necks?" And I went, wait a minute. Is he going to be doing that this whole movie? Because they didn't put any of his humor in the trailers. Like they promoted the humor entirely on Rocket, Groot, and Chris Pratt. Mm-hmm. And so then you start watching the movie, and the funniest character in the movie is Drax doing these jokes, and none of it's in the trailers. And so that moment for me was huge. The balls of the end of Infinity War that you get to it, that they did that, and that, some people are going to be, my wife was not happy that you didn't warn me enough that this was going to happen. I was like, yes, I did. You didn't listen to me. I told you you're going to hate the ending of this movie. And then the fact that also, a percentage of audiences were like, this isn't the end of a movie. You just cut this 2-part thing, and that they would have the balls to do that. I love that.
That's a movie I would say people need to see with an audience, because I saw Infinity War opening night, I think, and just hearing the audible gasps once character A went or character B went. It's a really neat experience seeing who in the crowd has a certain investment in the characters. Hey, Sean, huge fan of yours, Isaias Augusto Pagan de Jesus says that. Huge fan of yours. I started watching your vids right around when Ragnarok came out. Question: Alien or Predator? Creature, not movie.
Creature or
Alien or Predator. It doesn't have to be the movie.
Go with Predator. He's got cool technology, and he's just a beast in and of himself. Thank you for starting to watch. That was one of the big moments that was a turning point in my life when Thor Ragnarok came out. That video was successful. That was probably the one where he first watched. That I turned down job interviews that I was doing. I stopped interviewing for the job because of that. It was like, I'm going to write out this YouTube wave. So that was like a turning point in my life when you started watching the video.
That's awesome.
So if you want to, all that to say, thank you to watching to the viewer.
Are you someone that hates spoilers, or do you not care about them?
I hate spoilers. I view that there's 2 viewing experiences. One of them you only get once, unless you're forgetful, in which case you get it many times. But that first experience of seeing how the story unfolds, and then there's the repeat experience that you have forever going on. And spoilers take away that first experience. Mm-hmm. So you only get to be in the theater packed and watch Peter Parker in Tony Stark's arms one time. Mm-hmm. And every other time, you already know what's going to happen. Right. But that experience, that unique experience of that one time watching it, I value that a great deal. So like some people, if I don't do a trailer reaction for a trailer, I probably won't watch the trailer. Now, I go to the movies a lot, so then sometimes I'll see them in the theater. But I don't track down clips. I don't watch clips from movies. I try to avoid trailers for the most part because I want to go in as fresh as possible and have a unique experience.
Good question, Dave Cave. Since it can get in the way of productivity and break hope at times, comparing yourself to others, have you ever stopped watching others' content for the most part? And if so, when did it happen and why? Wow, that's a big question there.
So I'm glad he asked this question. He asked this on Twitter. I have it saved in my notes, and so I was supposed to bring it up and forgot to. So I'm glad that you caught it, because he asked this exact question on Twitter several days ago, and because I asked about this interview. So going into 2018 is really when there was just a steep drop in me watching other people. And that lined up also with me taking what I was doing more seriously. When this was just kind of a hobby here and there, it was like, yeah, I still watched all the other people and still, whether it would be Movie Talk, Jeremy John Stuckman, all the, I was just tracking with all of it until about January 2018, and just a pretty steep just drop. And I think some of it wasn't even so much of – it just kind of came down to all of my movie discussion, everything was happening on my channel by that point in time. That's kind of what stopped it. There were times where I specifically – well, I in general, I don't watch other people's reviews before I watch a movie anymore.
I can't do that. I cannot do that. I'm sorry.
It just now it seems weird to me to do that. I'm not oh, does Chris Stuckman recommend I watch this movie? If he does, I'll go see. I've never thought that way, and so now it's just very strange to me. Like, I want to go in, if possible. I don't even want to know Rotten Tomatoes scores, and so on the big movies, as soon as they I was hoping to not know Aquaman's score going into it. But as soon as the score dropped, people started tweeting it at me, and I was like, if I wanted to know this, I would look it up. Please don't send me every piece of information to catch, because I just going in fresh and not with no expectations. And even reading their little 2-sentence summary, it'll say something like, there's no chemistry with the Amber Heard or something, and then you're looking for the lack of chemistry.
Right.
Like, I don't want to do that. So I've cut back a whole lot. Sometimes after I watch a movie, if there's a gap between when I watched it and review it, sometimes I'll watch some reviews just to see, does they spark my memory of something I missed? Or am I just being too positive on this? Did I miss something in what I was thinking about it? Like, oh, okay. I'll do some of that sometimes. It just kind of depends on the movie.
So this is from me now, I guess. How important do you think Rotten Tomatoes should be, if at all? Like, it seems like, especially with the news lately, with Captain Marvel and Episode 9, ridiculously enough. Why should people put weight into that score? I guess is a better question.
I think the Rotten Tomatoes score, the critic score, is a useful answer to a question because it's objective. What percentage of critics recommend this film? Right. But all I do is I take it as that. It's a fact to me. It's interesting. However much money it makes the opening weekend is an interesting fact to me. Doesn't change whether it's good or bad. Doesn't change whether I'm going to go see it or not. It's just interesting to me because I'm interested in movies. And so knowing what percentage of professional critics say, yeah, I recommend that, is useful information to just have out there. What should you as an individual do? Well, you shouldn't trust an aggregated score from the critics or the audiences. You should watch a trailer and see if you're interested in seeing it. And maybe you should have some critics, specific ones that you trust. Like, you understand their taste and the way they talk about things. And so you know how to interpret the way they're talking about it.
Right.
And that's like, for me, I don't want anyone to just go and see a movie because I don't really even like recommending movies. I distinctly don't like recommending movies. Like, when someone asks me, like, hey, can you recommend a movie real quick? I'm like, I have no idea what to tell you because I don't know what you've seen. I don't know enough about you. I need to know you to make a recommendation to you. I just don't like generic recommendations. So even in the way I try and score things, I try and explain what it is. And it's like, if you're a sci-fi, like with Alita, I said, if you're a sci-fi fan, I think it's worth taking a shot and to see if you'll like it. If you're not a sci-fi fan, this probably isn't the right movie for you. You can skip it. But I'm trying to like categorizing everything as much as possible to make different recommendations. And so the idea of just using a score to decide if you should see something that's baffling to me. I have no clue why you would do that. But I just don't think that way. So I think I find the critic score far more useful than any audience score because everybody knows audience scores are rigged, and some of them might be accurate, and a bunch of them we know for a fact are people trolling the movie.
Do you have a favorite movie character?
Rocky Balboa.
Sean, will you ever be ranking the Nightmare on Elm Street films?
October. Okay. I've got the set bought and everything. So, it's I thought about it doing this past October, and then I was like, I can't not watch all these movies. I can't make all this happen. And several of the guys, Cody and Lee, were doing the 31 on 31. And
you like that name, right?
That's a good name. It's
I'll take credit for that.
Very nice, very nice. So I was invited to do it. I was like, oh, absolutely, I'll do it. And then we got closer. I was like, I can't do this. I just can't get that many movies watched in time.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of them are bad. A lot of them are tough to get through, to say the very least.
So I did Friday the 13th and Halloween. So I watched through over 20 of the movies in the 31 and 31, and that's an intense little slog to do in 1 month. Yeah. But so Friday the 13th is the one that I know I need to do it. It's coming in October. I've already bought and everything. Yes, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Have you ever thought of doing an Oscars type video? For example, choose your favorite movies of the year for the major categories. Yeah, actually, I'll piggyback that and say it's interesting because you do a very similar thing that I do is rank everything. Well, you're the king of ranking. Let me backtrack. Considering you rank everything you've seen, I was just wondering, why haven't you gone that extra step and do the Chandler Awards or something like that?
I did one, and I did something like that actually 2 years ago with Cody and Tyler Tompkins and Durbin of the Durbania. We did something, and then going into 2018, I just saw I had like 4 different friends like, hey, can you present for my awards? Hey, can you present for my awards? Hey, can you present for my awards? And so then I just saw a bunch of other people doing it, and I just don't want to be in the same space as everyone else, and I didn't necessarily have something that I thought would be better or whatever. Like I didn't have an angle to be the best at it. And so then, I do my best and worst of the year videos, biggest surprise, and several other, best comic book movies. So I didn't have that extra level to go with it. Sure. And then when it comes to like as I mentioned before, I didn't even see all of the best picture nominees. And so some of the other categories like cinematography and editing, I'm probably not the best person to evaluate those and to rank. Like, here's my opinion. Like, I did not have, like, people ask me, who are your picks for the Oscars? I don't have any. Like, I don't, like, were you surprised by who won? Like, no, I wanted Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse to win. Mm-hmm. That's it. Like that was the whole ceremony, 24 categories. There was one thing I had an opinion on. Everything else, I didn't really care. And I legitimately didn't care. And people kept private messaging me all day. Like, who do you want to do? Who? I was like, I don't have anything for you, unfortunately. Right. And so kind of going back to some of the stuff we said before of I could have put out a video with here's my picks for it. Here's my opinions on the Oscars the next day after. I just didn't have an angle that I thought warranted a video on some of the stuff. So
I give you all the credit in the world for saying that too. That listen, I don't know enough. I mean, you don't see that quite often in YouTube where people will BS their way through things. I mean, I consider myself a pretty decent follower of stuff, but I couldn't tell you what the difference between sound mixing and sound editing is. It's quite interesting to see somebody in your level.
I can, because someone last week private messaged me to ask me, hey, what's the difference between that exact question? Like, what are these two different things? I was like, well, since you asked, I better Wikipedia look it up. And so, but yeah, exactly. Like I always try to think there's some other side to things. Mm-hmm. So somebody thought Bohemian Rhapsody should be nominated for Best Editing and should win Best Editing. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they saw in that, but somebody saw it in there.
Yeah, we'll leave that alone.
Good idea.
So this is So when are we going to see that ranking of all the Marvel movies? I'm assuming that's going to be an ongoing thing, right?
So I think what they're talking about is I've been teasing that I'm watching every Marvel movie, like 50 plus, X-Men, Spider-Man, Blade, all of them.
Right.
Howard the Duck, all 50 plus. That's coming out I think it'll be a 1 week after Endgame comes out is the plan, I think.
And then what do you do when the new stuff comes out? You're just going to keep adding to it?
That one, no. That one, I mean, I don't have any problem repeating my stuff. Like, well, obviously, I don't have a problem repeating my rankings. That video itself, I like to have a fresh mind going into some of these things. So I wouldn't want to just create it and add one movie into it. That doesn't sound interesting at all. If I can't rewatch them, have a new perspective, but also to create a ranking video that's over 50 movies. Someone asked me this weekend, I did a Q&A, like, how long does it take you to edit how long does it take you to make one of your videos? And I go, well, a movie review, 2 hours, 3 hours. How long did it take me to do my best and worst superhero top 10 videos? Those are like 15-hour projects. Because it's like I'm trying to write it so it's like nice and concise, and then it takes me probably an hour to record it, and then to like cut out all the noise, have it move quickly, and have slick editing. It just takes a long time. Put clips on it, but put clips on it that are short enough that they don't get dinged by the copyright censors. There's like all these little things that I do that it just takes a long time, and then I have to watch through it and I go, oh, there was a mistake. And so that's a list of 10 15-hour projects. So sure. 55 Marvel movies. I don't even know how long it's going to take.
Multiply that by 5, yeah.
Yeah, and just
about a full week. Yeah.
Right. And just trying to think, just sitting down to film it, to concisely, articulately talk about 55 movies in one sitting. Like that's a big deal.
Yeah, no, I did 100 and it wasn't concise or articulate, and that was 5 different sessions. So you don't have to tell me about that. But
yes, that'll be the week after Endgame is the plan to be the biggest week in my channel's history.
Wow.
Like, I mean, just knocking, since that's my biggest franchise, this movie's going to be one of the biggest movies of all time. I mean, it's just all of the biggest things I can do that week. I'm going to try and ride that wave.
Pretty big year by franchise standards. Actually, you can't wait to see what happens in December.
That's where with my channel, because it's so franchise heavy, like it'll go like this way up here, and then just the bottom drops out when it hits September. Like, oh no, my channel's like, wait, my channel's built on blockbuster franchises. Totally fine. The next month Venom came out, and everything picked way back up.
Why do you think that Disney hasn't canceled the new Aladdin movie? That's an interesting question.
Because they'd be flushing money down the toilet. You put a new Aladdin movie out there, even though it looks pretty bad, doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like people are going to love it. And even the fact that they're not putting out a full trailer, they just keep putting out these teases, and we're a few months out. That seems like a red flag to me. That they haven't figured out how to do it right, so that when they present it, people will like it. They keep putting things out, and people are like, "Ugh. What are you doing?" So, but at the same time, it's the same thing as Dark Phoenix, which has bad buzz surrounding it. So that's actually, as soon as we finish this, the trailer's supposed to drop tonight. So this is like the busiest day for me ever. I've already posted 2 videos. I'm
sorry.
And then we did this live stream, and then I'm doing the trailer reaction tonight. So it's 4 different things for me. But yeah, like same thing. Like people are like, oh, are they going to cancel Dark Phoenix? Like, no, because they can flush $200 million down the toilet, or they can put it out. Even if it's terrible, it'll make $150 million, and that's $150.
Overseas, it'll do just fine, regardless.
Right, exactly. So even if it bombs in the U.S., it's still going to make $50 million. It wouldn't have made otherwise, but it's not going to make $50 million. It's going to make over $100 million. So it's simple mathematics. And even if it's terrible, so bad that it kills the franchise, like whether you're talking about like,
whatever future hopes, right?
Yeah. Whatever this is, it doesn't like they want the money. It's as simple as that. Whether you're talking about Dark Phoenix or you're talking about Aladdin, even if with both of them, if this kills the X-Men universe, well, the X-Men universe is dead anyway. And with Aladdin, if it's terrible, it has nothing to do with the Lion King. It's not like a franchise. It's just one of these standalone things. But it's going to make $500 million no matter what. Right.
People always forget that the loud voices on the internet are just that. Like the big complaints about Last Jedi, all the Last Jedi, highest selling Blu-ray of 2018, higher than Black Panther and Avengers was Last Jedi. So. Just because people are being loud on the internet doesn't always mean.
Right. And it made over $1 billion. And people are like, it didn't make as much money as The Force Awakens. Yeah, but.
Second highest grossing movie ever.
Right. Like, that's not an appropriate bar to set. Like, in the U.S., Force Awakens is the highest. So this bar that you're talking about, a very high bar, there was a cultural event, which is we haven't had a Star Wars movie in 10 years.
Right.
We haven't had a Star Wars movie that George Lucas didn't direct in 23 years at that point in time. It had been since Return of the Jedi. Well, I guess there was the Clone Wars movie, but live action, it was Return of the Jedi was the last one that he hadn't directed. And so it was a cultural event. Of course, it was sky high. And you can find all kinds of people that enjoyed Last Jedi. A lot of people that hate it, but that's the very loud whatever percentage it is on the internet.
Sure, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Opinion on Tarantino films and what's your favorite?
I mean, great, unique filmmaker that is all distinctly him. Any of his films, you can't think of anyone else that would make it. Even though they're different genres, they all feel like a Tarantino film. I'm partial to Pulp Fiction just probably because of my age, formative film for me, discovering indie films and being like, oh, wow, there's movies that are like, told out of order. This is awesome. Oh, wow. There's movies that don't have the White House blowing up that are awesome. That's awesome. So that one's probably for me that'll, just for nostalgic reasons, probably always stay on top. But it's just a very cool movie, too.
Rewind Replay basically has a comment. Sean has been a huge source of inspiration for me and my channel. He gave me so much incredible advice and tips and helped me grow and achieve better results. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Ryan O'Toole. Hey, Sean, I'm proud to have known you since we both got started on YouTube, and he deserves all of the success he has received. What do you remember most about those early days on YouTube?
Some of it, honestly, it's meeting all these people. So, like, I remember Ryan O'Toole commented on one of my very early videos, like first 100 subscribers. Like, he comments, is like, hey, man, I'm another movie reviewer. I'll subscribe to you. Let's comment on each other's videos. And like, that was the fact that he did that was important. And here we are 2.5 years later, however long it is. And like, we're still talking. We're still like communicating with each other. Him and I are doing a video in a month or so. Same with like Cody Leach, a guy that I talk with on Facebook almost every single day. And both of us had under 100 subs, under 200 subs, and found each other's Bloodfather reviews and just started talking back and forth. And here we are. 2 years later, we talk every day on Facebook. And so a lot of it, the early stuff, like I barely even remember what videos I posted. I wasn't going to, because I was in a weird place between jobs, I didn't even go to the movies that often. So it was like just this weird random assortment of videos that I put out there. Actually, one of the things, I couldn't see most new releases. And so I would go to other people's videos and I would watch their review and try and ask them questions about it. So that's kind of what I remember about the early days, is just finding all of these people that I'm still talking with now and commenting on their videos and just trying to make friends, basically.
There's a couple of questions asking your thoughts on the Captain Marvel controversy.
So actually we touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
But, I think that she's made some pretty unwise statements that, especially in the current climate of anything you say turns into a headline taken out of context. And when you say, something like, I don't need a white guy a white 40-year-old man to tell me what to think of A Wrinkle in Time, that's not a very good quote. Like, that sounds pretty bad as a quote. And as a nearly 40-year-old white man, I hear that and I go, I'm just trying to put my ideas out there. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm not trying why do you have to get me? And so she made some statements that I think are pretty unwise. But
well, you know, to play devil's advocate, don't you think the fact that like people aren't reading into it at all? They're just taking the rhetoric, the you know, the lack of substance to the statement. Like what she kind of means is, I want young women
diversity,
to go out and see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the flip side to it of like, but yeah, grow up, everybody. Like, who cares? Which one of these Hollywood actors do you actually agree with them on stuff with?
Right.
Every single one of these people that like they say things that I'm like, oh, the more I hear them talk about stuff, the more they just sound like a crazy person that's out of touch and is pandering to different groups.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where like Chris Pratt seems like the most normal because he says normal guy things and goes hunting and things like that. And I'm in Texas where everybody goes hunting. And so I can like, oh, I don't go hunting, but the fact that he goes hunting means he's like all these other people I know that do go hunting. Mm-hmm. And so just this that he and he talks like a normal person. He doesn't talk like someone that's running everything through their PR stuff. And so then like I don't really care what most celebrities' views on things are because they're out of touch rich people. And many of them have been out of touch. Like they became rich when they were 18 years old because they were pretty and got put in a slasher film or something like that, or, you know, were an underwear model. And so they just don't know what normal adult experience is like. So I don't care much what they have to say. So the fact that she would say something and I go, that's a bit weird. Well, they all say weird things to me. So why are you taking why are suddenly you care what she has to say and you're abandoning like all of your experience with MCU movies in the past? Like suddenly they're just SJW political garbage now. Like, are they really? Like, okay, like Black Panther got a little bit political, but it tied into the story. It wasn't like gratuitous. It like had a plot reason for it. It was a motivation from background. I thought it fit nicely. And I can understand why someone would like view it had an agenda, but it tied into the plot. Other than that one, which other ones do? So like what in the trailer made it seem like the movie is, it's just SJW propaganda. Like because she's fighting aliens and she's a girl, like that sounds like you're overly sensitive.
Yeah.
And I don't like, not that I would like want to embolden Hollywood to say stupid things or anything like that, but Marvel has my trust at this point in time. And so let's not say stupid things about categories of critics. Let's not overreact to the quote. Let's pay attention to what they're trying to say. And that's kind of my take on some of it then.
They're just movies. I mean,
right.
For as important as a lot of people think they are, it's just movies. You're just an actor. Granted, you might be inspiring people, but you know, it's fiction. Let's all calm down, I guess is a good way to put it. Are there any questions that you hate being asked, or are you grown tired of being asked as I ask you a question?
The one that's probably the most frustrating is it's a daily one, and it's not a specific one, but it's a specific category. Hey, can you rank fill in the blank? And it's something that I've already ranked like 1,000 times or whatever. Or like, hey, can you review this? As I reviewed that 2 days ago. Like I don't understand. What do you? Oh, like, oh yeah, I actually watched that. I just forgot. Like, some of the ones that I have to like actively try and remember like how I interact with other people's stuff. That, you know, with me, obviously everything on my channel, I wrote it, I filmed it, I edited it, I posted it, I wrote the title, I wrote the tags. So every video on my channel, almost every single one of them constitutes at least an hour of my life that I put into it. So it's so on my mind, every single thing that I've created. But I don't know that about anyone else's channel. I don't know what they've done. So I have to like stop and think that, because for me, it's, you know, hundreds of comments a day. Hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And it's like, I've already been asked this question so many times. Like even like the Friday the 13th one, like to me, that's a question that I've answered probably over 100 times in the comments. And it's not like even if I were to do like a community post saying like, I'm going to do it in October, that'd be weird. But even if I did that, not everyone would see it. Even if I did a video saying, I'm going to do it in October, not everyone would see it. And there's no reason that they would. And so it's just kind of there's not really any question that drives me crazy. It's more getting used to the fact that I'm kind of famous in a weird sense. Like it's like, as you said, like, oh, you're the biggest person I've had interviewed on here. It's like, really? Like I was delivering paint.
I'm just talking about sub count. That's all I'm talking about. let's deflate that head a little bit.
But even in that regard, that's a weird thought for me.
Sure.
Like,
sure.
It's because like the difference in like my feeling on how many subs I have. As soon as I got like over 10,000 and 80,000 feel the same. Mm-hmm. Like there's not like, oh, 20,000 now it went up. It went up. It's like I remember like 4 or 5 years ago, someone that I'd known in the past had a YouTube channel that had 8,000 subs on it. And at the time, 5 years ago, I was like, that's crazy. Wow, she has that many. Like, that is nuts that she has that. And so for years, she was the person that I knew that had the most subs. And then whenever I started my channel, started to grow a little bit, like, where's she at now? And she was up at like 70,000 subs. I was like, that's insane. I don't think I'll ever get there. Mm-hmm. Well, I passed her around January 1st. Oh, congratulations. Now, of all the people I know, I have the most subs, but it doesn't feel any different from when I had 10,000 subs. Mm-hmm. So it's a strange experience to like have people care about, like they really care. What are my thoughts on this? Are you ever going to do this? And you just have to get used to people ask you the questions, the same ones over and over and over again. And it's just kind of part of the routine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you to the chat. This is the last question from the chat, and then I'll wrap up with my final question. Do you plan on doing any giveaways anytime soon?
I don't. I'm not administrative enough. That's the honest question of like, I know other people are like, oh, doing giveaways. I did some stuff a year ago. I did some giveaways a year ago tied to kind of a sponsorship that I was doing with an app called Stardust. And so I was trying to kind of drive people to do all these different things. And if you do your reactions on Stardust, I'll pick one and I'll give away my digital codes for some movies. And right off the bat, the way I'm wired, it just made me nervous about like, I felt bad. Like, am I going to leave a name out of the hat or whatever? And that just made me nervous. And then I gave away my digital code to like Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie, and some other movies. And now every time I go into my Vudu collection to look at all my digital movies, I'm like, I wish Iron Man was there. So, like I literally feel bad about it every single time. Like, what? I mean, I wish I hadn't done that, even though I got the Blu-ray right here. So it's not even like I
can't watch it, right?
My completest nature is frustrated by it. But they make me nervous. Like I get anxiety thinking about all the things I need to keep together to do that right. And so I don't think so. If someone has a recommendation for a good giveaway, potentially I would do it, but I just don't know what I would do that would be worthwhile. I don't even know what would anyone care about that I could give away. Here, you can have this signed copy of Leonard Maltin's movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're probably getting emails and notifications and inquiries from certain places that you could probably turn around and give that stuff away. It's just
not as
really.
Yeah, not as much as I started to last summer and got some pretty consistent stuff happening. And then since about 50,000, I haven't really gotten all that many more. In new offers and stuff. Like all the kind of good brand connections that I've got were all pre 50,000. And to get super nerdy on YouTube, I think maybe even what might have happened is that my channel, in a certain sense, grew too fast last year, and brands and everything are interested in micro influencers. All the research shows that people like under a sub count of 30, 40,000 have a more devoted fan base, and you can get them cheaper. So that your bang for your buck of what you can pay someone with 30,000 subscribers to go to their people is a lot more effective than it is to go to someone that's over 50,000 who have a less devoted fan base. And there's been a lot of discussion in the stuff that I've been learning about micro influencers, and like, I'm not a micro influencer anymore, which in and of itself, like, that's weird. Like I'm an actual influencer, whatever that means. But it's been a very strange change of life over the last little bit of time. Like the job I had delivering paint, I literally had a blue collar I dressed like a mechanic for my job, and I wore steel-toed shoes, got covered in dirt and mud. So it's as blue collar of a job as you can imagine, driving an F-450 truck. And then on the internet, people are like, "Oh, Sean Chandler, I love you." It's like going back and forth between super normal and then inflated ego stuff.
Yeah, humbling experience going back to work, right?
Yes.
So the WILI in my channel name stands for Will I Like It. I used to do centralized reviews, but I'll use the spirit of my channel as the final question. Who would you recommend to Sean Chandler Talks About? Who would you say, you know what, why don't you check my channel out?
You know, anyone that just is unashamedly loves big franchises. Like in the movie review space, there's people into niches, you know, obviously some of the connections through us, like the horror niche. And then you've got a lot of people that feel the need to be cinephiles. And if you're in that space, you really need to be into, well, you probably should have Roma in your top 10 movies of the year because it's just it's a gorgeous film. And when these movies are important films, that's not my channel. I'm not that guy. I'm just not that person. If you just unashamedly love to go see big blockbusters, franchise films, and I'll cover the other stuff. And I talk about horror movies, and I love all film, but just you love whatever you love, and you don't, and you're okay with that. You're not trying to impress people with your sophisticated taste, your niche taste, your counterculture taste. You're not trying to prove anything to anybody. You just like what you like. That's what I want my channel to be, and that's who it's for. Awesome.
Sean, thank you so much for taking part in this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Any last words before we sign off?
I don't think so. My nose is itching, so if anyone thinks that I'm doing this, it's not because I have a cocaine habit. It's just because the longer I talk, my nose turns red and gets irritated. We'll end on that note.
So the
Sean
channel
is not addicted to cocaine.
The channel name is Sean Chandler Talks About. I've been CP. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.